I was raised by my aunt. Strict, cold, and calculating, the kind of woman whose words could cut deeper than a knife. She dressed it all up in duty, in discipline, and every time I asked about my mother, she shut it down with the same line, "You don't want to end up like her." I grew up hearing that so often, I began to believe my mother must have been some kind of disaster. A woman so reckless, her own life crumbled from shame. My aunt never let me forget that she saved me, that everything I had, clothes, food, a roof over my head, was because of her charity. Gratitude was expected. Obedience was non-negotiable. So I became the quiet one, the polite one, the one who never asked too many questions. And for years, I truly believed she was protecting me, until I turned 21. That year, her tone shifted. The lectures turned into ultimatums. "It's time you stop living like a child," she said. "A good woman knows when it's time to settle down." I thought she meant a talk, guidance, maybe even encouragement to explore life. But instead, she introduced me to a man. His name was Jaden. Older, almost 10 years older. Quiet, polite, soft-spoken, the kind of man you couldn't immediately read. He had a firm handshake and eyes that watched everything, but gave nothing away. She said he owned land, ran a small business, and was capable of taking care of a woman like me. I barely knew him, but she said that didn't matter. That love wasn't something you found, it was something you built. She said security was rare, and when it shows up, you don't walk away from it. I tried to protest, told her I wasn't sure, that I needed time. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't beg. Instead, she said 6 words I'll never forget. "You don't want to be alone." Something about the way she said it sent a chill down my spine. Suddenly, saying no didn't feel like an option. She planned the wedding, paid for everything, pressured me to wear the dress she picked, to smile for photos, to behave. And so, I married a man I barely knew because the woman who raised me said it was the smartest thing I could do. But what I didn't know, what no one told me, was that this wasn't about love, or safety, or even my future. It was about control. And as the door closed behind me on our wedding night, something inside me whispered, "You're not safe here." Jaden was distant, not just quiet or introverted, but unsettlingly distant. The kind of distance that makes you feel like you're sleeping beside a stranger with secrets stitched into his silence. He'd watch me, not with affection or curiosity, but with a strange intensity, like he was waiting, or hiding something. Every time I asked about his past, he changed the subject, brushed it off, said it didn't matter. But something in my gut told me otherwise. Something wasn't right. One night, I got up to get a glass of water and noticed a faint orange glow coming from under the study door. The smell of smoke drifted through the hallway. I pushed the door open slowly, and there he was, kneeling in front of the fireplace, tossing pages into the flames. His head whipped around when he heard me. His expression was blank, too calm. "Just old documents," he said, "cleaning out junk." But his hands were trembling, and in the fire, I saw corners of photographs curling up in the heat. I didn't argue. I didn't ask questions. I just turned and walked away. But sleep never came that night. My heart pounded with a strange mix of fear and fury. The next morning, when he left the house, I waited for the sound of the gate closing before I rushed back to the study. I pulled on gloves and dug through the trash beside the fireplace, praying something survived the flames. And something did. Charred edges, ash-covered pages, a half-burnt photo, a hospital wristband with a familiar name, and then, folded but not fully destroyed, a DNA test result. My hands shook as I read the names. At the top, my aunt. Next to her name, the label, Mother. And underneath that, in bold print, was the name Jaden. Everything stopped. Jaden wasn't just a man my aunt introduced me to. He wasn't some successful businessman or distant acquaintance. He was her son, her hidden child, a secret she never spoke of, the child born before she married, the part of her life she buried so deeply, she was willing to sacrifice me to keep it hidden. Jaden wasn't a stranger. He was family, my cousin, or worse, my half-brother. And she, my aunt, the woman who raised me, the woman who told me my mother died of shame, she made me marry him, lied to me, manipulated me, used me as a shield to protect herself from a truth she couldn't face. She didn't care about my future. She cared about her past. And she buried me alive just to keep it buried. I was the final cover-up, the pawn she married off to her own son to erase her past. But I didn't confront her. And I didn't confront them right away. I watched. I listened. I collected every scrap of truth he thought he'd burned, photos, old letters, fragments of conversations, even recordings. I kept them hidden, waiting for the right moment. That moment came the very next day, my aunt's birthday. The house was full of people, smiling, laughing, toasting her for being such a strong, dignified woman. And there I was, sitting silently, holding a small box in my lap. When it was time for the gifts, I stood up, walked to the center of the room, and handed her the box. Just one look at it, and her smile began to crack. But nothing could have prepared her for what was inside. Her letters, the DNA results, the photos. Everything she had buried now lay exposed in front of everyone she knew. Her hands trembled as she opened the envelope, and her face went pale. So pale, it was like the blood drained from her body. Jaden, her son, sat frozen beside her, his eyes darting over the documents like they might change if he read them fast enough. He looked like someone had driven a knife straight through his chest. The room, once filled with laughter and celebration, descended into stunned silence. You could hear every breath, every whisper of confusion and disbelief. I stood there, no tears, no trembling, just years of pain rising up like fire in my throat. I looked her dead in the eye and said, "You always told me my mother died from shame, but maybe it wasn't shame that killed her. Maybe it was betrayal." My voice didn't shake, it didn't need to. The weight of what I said landed heavy across the room. Then I asked her, calmly, plainly, what I had ever done to deserve this. Why did she raise me just to sacrifice me? Tears welled in her eyes. She tried to speak, to explain, and that's when the story unraveled. She said she got pregnant before marriage, that her family was furious. They told her to get rid of the baby, said she would bring shame on the entire family. She was young, scared, and desperate. She even tried to go through with it, but the doctor warned her that complications could leave her unable to have children ever again. Her father, in a panic, sent her away to live with her aunt during the pregnancy, to hide the scandal. And when she gave birth, the baby, Jaden, was handed off to a woman who was desperate for a child. That woman raised him as her own. But years later, on her deathbed, she told Jaden the truth, that she wasn't his real mother, and gave him everything he needed to find the woman who was. My aunt said she was overjoyed when he came back into her life. She was so desperate to keep him close, to make up for the years they lost, to love him openly without shame. But she was still afraid. Afraid of what people would say. Afraid of the whispers. The judgment. So, she did what she thought was easiest. She used me. She told me he could give me a future, that he was everything a woman could want in a husband. But it wasn't about me. It never was. It was about her. About hiding her shame while wrapping herself in the comfort of a son she once abandoned. She kept crying, kept begging me to understand, to forgive her. But I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. I just stood there, shattered. Because all my life, I thought she raised me out of love, out of duty. But now I realized, she never really cared about me. I was just a bridge, a means to reconnect with the one she truly wanted. Then I left, not with a suitcase or a plan, just with a heart full of betrayal and a mind spinning with questions that would never have answers. As I walked toward the door, Jaden, my husband, or should I say cousin, followed me. His voice cracked as he called my name. He said he was sorry, that he never meant to hurt me, that he agreed to the marriage because he wanted to be close to his mother, to rebuild something he never had. After the woman who raised him passed away, he said he felt lost, alone, and when she came back into his life, promising him family, love, a future, he held on to it, even if it meant using me. But I couldn't hear it. Not then. I couldn't feel sorry for someone who stood silently while I was handed over like a pawn. I was still heartbroken, still numb. So I left, without another word, without looking back. But that wasn't the end of my story. It was the beginning. I moved far away, started from nothing, slept on floors, took odd jobs, and slowly, painfully, I built something of my own. I started a company, poured every ounce of my pain, rage, and silence into it. Then I wrote a book, a memoir, the raw truth of what I had lived through. It became a bestseller. People read it, cried with me, saw themselves in my pain, and found strength in my survival. I was invited to speak on stages, in rooms I never imagined I'd enter. My voice, once silenced, became the very thing that changed lives. I made more money in 1 year than they had probably seen in their entire lives. But it wasn't about the money. It was about becoming more than what they tried to make me. About proving that you can be discarded, and still rise. And when people asked me, how did you survive that kind of betrayal? I smiled and said, you don't just survive betrayal. You bleed from it. You scream through it. But then you wipe your own tears, stitch your own wounds, and you rise so high, they have no choice but to look up. Betrayal doesn't break you. It reveals you. Sometimes the deepest wounds come from those closest to us. But those betrayals don't define your worth, they uncover your strength. Choosing not to retaliate in the moment doesn't mean you're defeated. It means you're calculating, healing, and preparing for a better, wiser move. Healing is your responsibility, not theirs. The people who hurt you may never apologize, but you owe it to yourself to rebuild, stronger, smarter, and on your own terms. Your past can be pain, or power. You can let what happened to you chain you down, or you can use it as the reason you rise. Family doesn't excuse harm. Being related doesn't give anyone the right to manipulate or sacrifice you for their own comfort. Real family protects, not controls. Success is the quietest revenge. The best closure isn't screaming or confronting. It's living so well that those who try to destroy you are forced to watch you shine. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe for more powerful stories.